The day began like any other on the distant planet of Lumeria, with its pale lavender skies stretching endlessly over rolling hills of soft, glowing grass. But on this particular morning, an unusual sound pierced the quiet of the royal palace, a high-pitched wail that seemed impossible to ignore. The alien princess, Auralia, had become a mother only a few days ago, yet her joy was shadowed by worry. Her newborn baby had not stopped crying since birth. Every attempt to soothe the infant had failed. The palace staff, the royal advisors, even the most skilled caregivers in Lumeria had tried everything they knew: soft songs, gentle rocking, and even complex alien devices designed to regulate a baby's emotions. Nothing worked. Auralia watched helplessly as her advisors moved around the nursery, their faces showing both frustration and concern. The baby's cries echoed through the corridors, carrying a strange urgency that made it impossible for anyone to ignore. Every sound seemed to vibrate in the air, and the princess could feel it in her chest, a mixture of sadness, fatigue, and fear. She wanted so badly to comfort her child, to hold it close and whisper that everything would be okay. But every time she reached out, the baby's wails grew louder, as if it rejected her touch. The princess had always been known for her calm demeanor. She could solve disputes between kingdoms with a few words, negotiate peace during tense situations, and command respect with ease. But here in the quiet nursery filled with soft lights and floating toys, she felt powerless. Her heart ached as she tried to understand why her baby could not be calmed. Perhaps it was something unusual about this child, something no one had ever seen before. The palace staff suggested different methods. One advisor brought a soft, glowing orb that changed colors with the baby's mood, claiming it would soothe the child. Another used a tiny device that produced gentle vibrations, designed to mimic the rhythms of the womb. Still, nothing seemed to work. Each failure left the princess more anxious, and she could see the worry spreading to those around her. Even the usually composed caregivers were at a loss, whispering among themselves about how rare such a case was in all of Lumeria. Auralia's mind wandered to stories she had heard about humans from a distant planet called Earth. She had read reports about their resilience, their kindness, and how they could sometimes calm children with patience and simple gestures. Unlike her world, which often relied on technology and precise methods, humans seemed to understand emotions in a way that was almost magical. She wondered if one of them could help her, if their touch or their voice could reach her baby in a way that her own people could not. Meanwhile, the baby continued to cry, its small face scrunched up, tiny fists waving in the air. Auralia held it in her arms, trying to calm it with soft coos and gentle movements. She sang the songs her mother had sung to her as a child, songs meant to bring peace and comfort. Yet the cries never ceased. It was exhausting, emotionally and physically. Her hair fell in loose strands over her shoulders, and her eyes, though glowing faintly with the light of her alien heritage, were tired and red from sleepless nights. Despite all this, the princess refused to give up. She watched the caregivers and advisors tirelessly try different techniques, always hopeful that the next attempt might work. One day, a nurse wrapped the baby in a blanket infused with calming scents from Lumeria's rare flowers. The infant cried for a few moments, then wailed even louder, as if protesting the soothing smells. Another day, a machine projected images of serene landscapes, hoping to distract the baby. Yet the cries grew louder, echoing through the palace halls. Auralia began to feel a sense of isolation, as if no one could truly understand the bond she longed to form with her child. She remembered her own childhood, how her mother had comforted her with just a touch or a gentle word. She wished she could find that same connection, that simple magic that would make her baby feel safe and loved. Each failure, however, left a small ache in her heart, a question of whether she was enough as a mother. Then, one evening, as the twin moons of Lumeria rose in the sky, casting silver light over the palace, Auralia stood by the nursery window, staring at the stars. She wondered about the humans she had read about the soldiers and caregivers who could calm even the most restless children. Could one of them really help her baby? Could someone from a distant world understand her child in ways she could not? The thought both excited and worried her. She had no idea how to bring a human here, or if it would even work, but the idea took root in her mind. The princess's resolve strengthened. She would do everything in her power to help her child feel peace. She could not allow her baby to continue crying endlessly, and she could not accept that no one in her world could offer the solution. She began to study reports about humans more carefully, reading every detail about their interactions with children, their patience, their ways of showing care without gadgets or complex rituals. Each story gave her hope that there might be a way to calm her baby, a way to form the bond she so desperately wanted. By the end of the week, Auralia's determination had grown into a plan. If her own people could not help, perhaps someone from another world could. Perhaps a human could bring peace to her child where all others had failed. And so, under the soft glow of the twin moons, she began preparing to reach out to the humans, unsure of what to expect but filled with hope. In that quiet moment, the princess held her crying baby close, feeling its tiny heartbeat against hers. She whispered words of comfort in a language only they shared. Though the cries did not stop immediately, Auralia felt a spark of possibility, a belief that perhaps, just perhaps, help from an unexpected source could bring the calm she longed for. And somewhere far away, a human soldier was about to enter her world, unknowingly carrying the key to a connection that no alien method had ever achieved. The day Daniel arrived on Lumeria, the sky glowed with a soft lavender hue, the kind that made the distant mountains shimmer like they were made of crystal. He stepped carefully from the small shuttle onto the smooth ground near the palace, feeling a mixture of curiosity and caution. Daniel was a human soldier, trained to remain calm in difficult situations and to think clearly under pressure. His mission was simple on paper: assist the alien royal family with peaceful diplomacy and provide guidance and care for their youngest citizen. But in reality, nothing could have prepared him for what awaited inside the palace. From the moment Daniel walked through the grand doors, he sensed the tension in the air. Servants hurried along the polished hallways, their faces tight with worry. Advisors whispered in corners, glancing nervously at one another. And from the nursery, a sound rang out that seemed to vibrate in the walls itself. A sharp, unrelenting cry. The alien princess, Auralia, met him in the hall. Her eyes held both hope and exhaustion. Daniel immediately recognized the silent message she was sending. She needed help, and she had placed her trust in him. He followed her down the corridor, each step echoing softly until they reached the nursery. The moment the door opened, Daniel saw the source of the commotion. The baby lay in a floating cradle, a tiny bundle of alien features, wriggling and screaming with every ounce of energy it possessed. The room was filled with soft lights that changed colors and floating toys that spun in circles. Despite all these elaborate methods, the infant was inconsolable. Daniel took a deep breath, calming his own nerves. He had faced stressful situations before, but nothing like this. Still, he reminded himself that patience was key. Auralia stepped aside, silently, urging him to try. Daniel knelt beside the cradle, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. He did not reach for any devices or call for machines to adjust the lights. Instead, he focused on the baby, letting his voice drop into a calm, even tone. He spoke softly, a string of words in English that he knew the baby could not understand, but it was the rhythm, the steadiness, and the warmth that mattered. The infant's cries did not stop immediately, but Daniel remained steady, moving with patience, letting the baby sense that he posed no threat, only care. Minutes passed. Daniel gently rocked the cradle, not too fast, not too slow, maintaining a steady rhythm. The baby's tiny fists began to relax, its face losing some of the strain. Auralia watched, unable to believe her eyes. No device, no sophisticated method, no glowing orb had ever achieved this. And yet here, with just a human soldier's calm presence and simple gestures, the infant was beginning to respond. Encouraged, Daniel reached out slowly, his hands hovering near the baby without touching. He allowed the infant to get used to his presence. Then, when the child seemed less tense, he lifted it gently from the cradle, The baby, still making small sounds but quieter than before, looked up at him with wide, curious eyes. Daniel held it close to his chest, feeling the rhythm of its tiny heartbeat, and continued speaking softly. Auralia stepped closer, almost afraid, to breathe as she observed the transformation. As the baby began to settle, Daniel explained to the princess what he was doing. He spoke in calm, deliberate sentences. Sometimes children, no matter where they come from, need to feel safe and understood. They respond to steady energy and gentle touch more than any machine or device. His words were simple, yet they carried a truth that resonated deeply with Auralia. She had relied so much on technology and careful routines that she had almost forgotten the power of patience, of presence, of connection. Over the next few hours, Daniel continued working with the baby. He showed Auralia how to hold it without startling, how to speak softly without rushing, and how to move in a way that conveyed calm. The infant, who had not known peace before, now rested its head against Daniel's shoulder, eyes half closed, breathing slowly. The change was subtle yet profound. The nursery, once filled with tension, now felt lighter, as if the very air had shifted. The princess, overwhelmed with relief and curiosity, began asking questions. "Why do your methods work so differently from ours?" she asked. Daniel smiled gently. "It's not about methods," he said. "It's about connection. Babies sense feelings. If they feel calm, safe, and loved, they respond. It doesn't matter if they are from another world. These needs are universal." Auralia listened closely, her mind opening to a new perspective. For days she had tried every tool and technique available in Lumeria. Nothing had worked. But here, with someone who came from another planet entirely, the solution was simple and human. She realized that her child needed more than technology. It needed trust, patience, and genuine warmth. Daniel's presence had brought a kind of magic that no device could replicate. The rest of the palace staff began to notice the change as well. Caregivers whispered among themselves, astonished that the baby could finally be soothed. Even the most skeptical advisors admitted quietly that they had never seen anything like this. The princess beamed with gratitude, a weight lifting from her shoulders. For the first time since giving birth, she felt hope, not just for her child but for her ability to nurture it. By evening, Daniel had demonstrated enough to teach Auralia how to continue the calming techniques herself. The baby, now relaxed, and resting against the princess's chest, cooed softly as if recognizing that it was finally safe. Auralia's heart swelled with emotion. She realized that the bond she had longed for all along was possible, and that it could grow stronger with patience, care, and understanding. As the twin moons of Lumeria rose in the sky, casting a silver glow across the nursery, Auralia held her baby close. She looked at Daniel with gratitude, realizing that his arrival had changed everything. What had seemed impossible for days, the calming of her child, was now achievable, and she knew that with his guidance, she could continue building a deep, lasting connection with her infant, a bond that could not be broken by technology or distance but only strengthened by care, presence, and love. That night, for the first time since its birth, the baby slept peacefully. Auralia watched over it, tears of relief and joy glimmering in her eyes. She understood now that sometimes the simplest acts, performed with patience and kindness, could achieve what the most sophisticated devices could not. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that this human soldier, this visitor from a distant world, had given her more than just help with her baby. He had given her hope, understanding, and a new way of seeing the world. The days following Daniel's first success with the baby were unlike any Auralia had ever experienced. The nursery, once filled with stress and tension, had become a place of gentle laughter, soft coos, and warmth. Auralia could hardly believe the transformation. The infant, who had cried nonstop for days, now slept for longer periods and seemed calmer even when awake. Every time Daniel visited, the baby's eyes would light up with recognition, and Auralia realized that there was something extraordinary about the connection he brought. Auralia, curious and eager to learn, began observing Daniel closely. She noticed that it was not just his hands or his voice that calmed the child, but the entire way he approached the situation. He moved with deliberate slowness, always paying attention to the baby's reactions, adjusting his approach when necessary, and never showing frustration. He listened to the little sounds the baby made, the small movements of its limbs, and even the expressions that crossed its tiny face. To Aralia, it seemed as though Daniel could understand the baby's feelings without words, intuitively knowing what it needed. She wanted to understand this approach herself, and Daniel was patient in teaching her. He explained that every child, no matter the species, responded to care that was consistent and kind. "It's not about magic or tools," he told her one morning, as the baby lay peacefully in a cradle. "It's about attention and empathy. Children or infants of any kind feel what we feel. If we are calm, they become calm. If we are anxious, they sense it and mirror it." Aralia listened carefully, absorbing every word. She realized that she had been relying too heavily on technology and complex methods, forgetting that the simplest actions often had the most profound effect. Inspired by Daniel, she began trying the techniques herself. At first, the baby was cautious, still clinging to the familiarity of Daniel's presence. But as Aralia practiced patience and gentle touch, the infant slowly began responding to her as well. For the first time, Aralia felt a true bond forming with her child. She felt the tiny hands curl around her fingers, felt the warmth of its body against hers, and heard the soft coos that had been missing since birth. The bond between mother and child grew stronger with each passing day. Aralia found herself spending hours in the nursery, experimenting with different gentle songs and movements, guided by Daniel's calm instructions. She learned to recognize the baby's subtle signals, to know when it needed comfort and when it needed space. The princess felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that she could finally provide the care her child deserved. But the story was not only about the baby. Daniel's presence also affected the crew and the advisors around them. They had watched him work, amazed at how his calm energy seemed to influence the entire environment. The palace staff, who had once rushed and stressed at every cry, now moved slowly, thoughtfully, and with patience. Tension and worry gave way to a more relaxed and supportive atmosphere. The princess realized that what Daniel taught was not limited to caring for a baby. It was a lesson in empathy, understanding, and harmony that could benefit everyone. Aralia began practicing these lessons beyond the nursery as well. She noticed how her own energy and attitude affected those around her. Meetings with advisors became calmer, conflicts were resolved more gently, and even the palace guards seemed more focused and patient. It was as if the simple acts of understanding and empathy Daniel had demonstrated in the nursery had spread throughout the palace, quietly transforming the way people interacted. The baby, meanwhile, continued to thrive. It laughed, gurgled, and explored the world around it with curiosity and confidence. Aralia marveled at how different the child seemed from just a week ago, when cries and frustration had filled every moment. Now the infant displayed a sense of trust and security that was remarkable. Daniel watched these changes with quiet satisfaction, knowing that the princess had learned the most important lesson of all: that love, patience, and attention could overcome challenges that technology alone could not. One afternoon, as Daniel showed Aralia how to rock the baby gently while singing a soft lullaby, the princess realized something profound. She had spent so much time seeking solutions outside herself, relying on devices and advice, that she had forgotten the power she already possessed. Through Daniel's guidance, she had discovered her own strength as a mother, and she had learned to trust her instincts. The baby responded to her touch, her voice, and her presence in a way that filled her heart with joy. She knew now that this bond was not just about calming the child, it was about connection, trust, and love. Daniel, too, had learned from the experience. He had never interacted with aliens in this way before, and the uniqueness of the situation taught him patience and adaptability. He realized that care and empathy were universal languages, capable of bridging worlds and species. Watching the princess gain confidence and witnessing the baby's growth, had given him a sense of fulfillment unlike any mission he had ever undertaken. Over time, the princess and Daniel formed a partnership based on mutual respect and shared purpose. Daniel did not simply instruct, he guided with encouragement, allowing Auralia to discover her own abilities. Auralia, in turn, embraced his methods while adding her own understanding and intuition, creating a unique approach that suited both her and her baby. Together, they celebrated small victories, a baby sleeping through the night, a smile in response to gentle words, a moment of calm where chaos once ruled. The changes were not only practical, but emotional. Auralia felt lighter, more confident, and deeply grateful. She realized that the power to calm and nurture her child had always been within her, waiting for guidance and belief. Daniel's role was to help her unlock it, to show her that patience and empathy could achieve what the most advanced technology could not. By the end of Part 3, the nursery had transformed into a place of warmth, laughter, and learning. The baby slept peacefully in Auralia's arms, and the princess stood taller, her confidence as a mother restored. She had discovered a new understanding of care, a lesson that would guide her for the rest of her life. And in the quiet moments when she watched her child's gentle breathing and soft movements, she knew that this connection, the one that had once seemed impossible, was now unbreakable. The human soldier, Daniel, had done more than calm a baby. He had bridged two worlds, teaching a princess that the simplest gestures of love and attention could bring peace, not just to a child, but to an entire environment. Auralia had learned that sometimes the greatest solutions were not found in technology or elaborate methods, but in patience, understanding, and the quiet power of a human touch. Days turned into weeks, and the nursery on Lumeria had become a place of gentle harmony. The baby, who had once cried almost non-stop, now laughed, cooed, and explored its surroundings with curiosity. The alien princess, Auralia, had transformed alongside her child. No longer overwhelmed and anxious, she had grown confident in her abilities as a mother, guided by Daniel's steady presence. She now understood that care was more than just following instructions. It was about patience, attention, and love, combined with trust in oneself. Each morning, Auralia would wake early to spend time with the baby before the palace came to life. She had learned how to read its small gestures, the way it reached for her hands, the tiny turns of its head, the soft movements of its limbs. Every motion was meaningful, and she responded with calm, thoughtful care. Daniel often observed quietly, offering guidance only when necessary, allowing Auralia to build her confidence. Slowly, the princess realized that she no longer needed constant instruction. She could sense what her baby needed on her own. The bond between Auralia and her child deepened every day. She would sing soft songs in her melodic alien language, rocking the baby gently in her arms. The baby would smile, its tiny eyes sparkling as it reached for her face. In these moments, Auralia felt an overwhelming sense of joy and connection. The love she had longed for was no longer a distant hope. It was present, tangible, and reciprocated. The princess understood, finally, that her patience and presence had been the key all along. Daniel had shown her the path, but she had walked it herself step by step, guided by empathy and care. But the transformation did not stop in the nursery. The atmosphere in the palace began to change as well. The royal advisors, who had once whispered anxiously about the baby's cries, now moved with calm and purpose. The caregivers, inspired by Daniel's example and Auralia's growing confidence, began to handle their duties with patience rather than stress. Even the guards, who had been tense from the constant noise and worry, now seemed more relaxed, moving through the halls with quiet focus. The energy of the entire palace had shifted. Where chaos and tension had reigned, peace and harmony had taken root. Auralia noticed this change with wonder. She realized that the lessons she had learned in the nursery were universal, the same principles that soothed her child, patience, empathy, and calm, could improve the lives of everyone around her. She began applying these lessons in her daily duties as a princess, speaking to advisors with kindness, listening attentively to concerns, and resolving conflicts gently. Slowly, the palace became a place of cooperation and understanding rather than stress and urgency. The baby thrived in this new environment. It explored its surroundings with curiosity, learning from everything it touched and saw. Toys that had once been useless distractions now became instruments of joy and learning. The floating cradle, the gentle lights, and the soft music all complemented the simple acts of attention and care Auralia and Daniel provided. The infant seemed to understand that it was safe, loved, and cared for, and it responded in ways that amazed everyone. Its laughter echoed through the halls, a sound so pure and joyful that it lifted the spirits of anyone who heard it. Daniel continued to support Auralia, but his role gradually shifted. Instead of leading, he became a partner, observing and offering encouragement. He marveled at how quickly the princess had learned to connect with her baby, and he felt proud to see the results of their teamwork. His presence was no longer about controlling the situation. It was about sharing in the joy of progress and growth. Together, they celebrated every small milestone: a nap without fuss, a smile in response to a gentle word, a first attempt at crawling. Each success brought laughter and relief, strengthening the bond between mother, child, and mentor. The princess also began to share her new understanding with others. She taught caregivers how to read the baby's signals, how to respond with patience rather than frustration, and how to create an environment where love and calm were the foundation of care. The lessons spread beyond the nursery, influencing the way the palace operated. Meals were served more calmly, instructions were given with care, and even official meetings felt less tense. Auralia realized that the changes she had achieved with her baby could extend to the entire kingdom, creating a ripple effect of peace and understanding. One evening, as the twin moons rose and bathed the palace in silver light, Auralia held her sleeping baby close and reflected on the journey. She remembered the first days when she had felt helpless, surrounded by cries and frustration. She thought of Daniel's arrival, his calm presence, and the gentle methods that had transformed everything. Most of all, she reflected on her own growth, the confidence she had gained, and the deep love she now felt for her child. She realized that the power to nurture, to calm, and to create harmony had been within her all along. Daniel had only shown her the way to unlock it. The baby stirred slightly, reaching for her face with tiny hands. Auralia smiled, speaking softly, in her melodic voice. The infant responded with a happy coo, then snuggled closer. At that moment, she knew that the bond between them was unbreakable. It was built not just on care and guidance, but on trust, love, and mutual understanding. She felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that she could provide her child with everything it needed, not just survival, but happiness and security. Daniel watched from a short distance, quietly proud. He knew that his mission had succeeded, in more ways than one. The baby was calm, the princess was confident, and the palace had become a place of peace. Yet he also understood that the greatest achievement was intangible. The bond that had formed between mother and child, strengthened by patience and empathy, a connection that transcended worlds. He smiled, knowing that the lessons learned here would last a lifetime. In the following weeks, the palace continued to thrive. The baby grew stronger, more confident, and increasingly curious. The princess continued to apply Daniel's teachings in her daily life, nurturing not only her child but everyone around her. Caregivers and advisors embraced the principles of patience and empathy, creating a supportive environment that benefited all. The transformation was remarkable, proof that even the smallest acts of kindness and attention could have a profound impact on an entire community. By the end of this period, the bond between Auralia, the baby, and Daniel had solidified into something extraordinary. They had faced a challenge that seemed impossible, yet through patience, understanding, and gentle guidance, they had succeeded. The princess had discovered her own strength, the baby had found peace, and Daniel had helped bridge the gap between two very different worlds. Together they had created harmony where there had once been chaos, showing that love and empathy were universal forces, capable of overcoming any obstacle. And as the twin moons of Lumeria cast their gentle glow over the palace, Auralia held her baby close, whispering softly in a language filled with love. The infant, now calm and happy, nestled against her chest, a living reminder that patience, care, and understanding could transform even the most challenging situation into one of joy, trust, and connection. Time flowed gently through the palace of Lumeria, each day bringing small joys and milestones for Auralia, her baby, and Daniel. The once chaotic nursery was now a sanctuary of calm, laughter, and warmth. The baby had grown stronger and more confident, exploring its surroundings with curiosity and delight. Each day, Auralia marveled at how much the child had changed since Daniel's arrival, realizing that patience, care, and presence had worked wonders far beyond any technology or method she had previously relied upon. Auralia had become a mother, in the truest sense. She understood her baby's needs, gestures, and emotions in ways that no one else could. She spoke softly, touched gently, and responded attentively to every sound or movement. The bond they shared was now deep and unbreakable, a connection built on trust, love, and shared experiences. The baby smiled freely at her, cooed in happiness, and even reached out with tiny hands to touch her face or hair, showing recognition and affection. Each of these small moments filled her heart with an unexplainable joy. Daniel, too, continued to support her, though his role had shifted from teacher to partner. He observed quietly, offering encouragement rather than instruction. He marveled at Auralia's growth, watching her become confident and capable in ways that inspired him. Together they celebrated the baby's first steps, its first laughter in response to a gentle tickle, and its first curious explorations of the palace. Each milestone was a triumph, proof of the patience, empathy, and love that had transformed their world. The palace itself seemed to thrive on this new energy. The staff moved with a calm efficiency, caregivers approached their duties with renewed understanding, and advisors found that gentle words and patience were more effective than strict commands or urgency. The palace, once tense and anxious, had become a place of harmony, where learning, growth, and joy were celebrated. Auralia realized that the lessons she had learned with her child could be applied to the wider world, creating a ripple effect that improved life for everyone in her care. As the baby grew, it began to respond to more complex interactions. It recognized familiar faces, laughed at gentle jokes, and even displayed curiosity about the world beyond the nursery. Auralia and Daniel watched in amazement as the infant explored small corners of the palace, reaching out to touch glowing plants, colorful toys, and soft fabrics. Every small achievement reinforced the power of connection, patience, and care. Auralia knew that the love she shared with her baby was now a force capable of nurturing growth and happiness in ways she had never imagined. One evening, as the twin moons of Lumeria cast a gentle silver light over the palace, Auralia held her sleeping child close and reflected on the journey they had all undertaken. She thought of the first days when the cries seemed endless and every attempt to calm the infant had failed. She remembered the arrival of Daniel, a stranger from another world, who had brought with him patience, empathy, and calm energy. And she thought of the transformation that had taken place, not just in the baby, but within herself and across the palace. Auralia realized that Daniel had given her more than guidance. He had given her a perspective on love and care that transcended worlds. He had shown her that true connection could not be forced or manufactured, but it could be nurtured with attention, patience, and presence. She felt gratitude beyond words, knowing that his influence had helped her become the mother she had always hoped to be. Daniel, standing quietly nearby, smiled as he watched the princess with her child. He understood that his work was complete, not because the baby no longer needed care, but because the princess had gained confidence, knowledge, and the ability to nurture her child independently. His role had been that of a guide, a helper, and a witness to an extraordinary transformation. The bond between mother and child was now strong and lasting, a connection that required no further intervention. The palace continued to hum with life, filled with laughter, soft music, and gentle movements. Auralia shared her experiences with caregivers and advisors, teaching them the importance of empathy, patience, and attentive care. She showed that even the smallest acts of love, a gentle touch, a calm voice, or simply being present, could create profound changes. The lesson spread beyond the nursery, influencing the lives of everyone in the palace, creating an environment where understanding and compassion were valued above all else. The baby thrived in this environment, growing stronger, happier, and more curious each day. It learned to respond to its surroundings with confidence, exploring the world with wonder and joy. Auralia marveled at each new development, feeling pride and love welling up inside her. She knew that the bond they shared was the foundation for a happy and secure life, one that would shape the baby's growth and development in countless ways. As the story of their journey spread quietly through the palace, other members of Lumeria began to recognize the power of human presence and empathy. The methods Daniel had introduced, combined with Auralia's growing understanding, became models for caring for children and guiding others. The palace had transformed into a place of harmony and understanding, where love, patience, and attention were celebrated as the true keys to success and happiness. In the final moments of this chapter, Auralia held her baby close, feeling the warmth of its tiny body against hers. She whispered softly, words filled with love, and the infant responded with a gentle coo, curling into her embrace. Daniel stood nearby, watching with quiet pride, knowing that his presence had helped create a lasting bond, a connection that would shape the future of the princess and her child. The journey that had begun with endless cries and frustration had ended with peace, love, and understanding. Auralia had discovered her own strength, the baby had found comfort and security, and Daniel had shown that even the simplest acts of patience and care could bridge worlds. Together they had created harmony where there had once been chaos, proving that empathy, love, and attention were universal forces capable of transforming any situation. And as the twin moons of Lumeria shone over the palace, the three of them, princess, child, and human soldier, rested in a quiet moment of joy and connection, a living reminder that patience, care, and love could overcome any challenge and bring lasting peace to even the most troubled hearts.